It was just after midnight when headlights cut across the rural darkness of Route 118 in Montgomery, Vermont. The road was silent. No other vehicles, no movement, just farmland, forests, and the creeping sense that something wasn't right. Tucked alongside the road, up against the side of an abandoned farmhouse, was a green 1985 Oldsmobile sedan. It looked wrong, not like someone had parked it there, but like it had crashed or been placed. Its rear end was still jutting out into the road. One of its turn signals blinked in the darkness, on repeat. Blink, blink, like a slow, steady metronome counting down to something unseen or unfinished. Inside the car, Brianna Maitland's belongings, her wallet, her keys, her medication, even paychecks she hadn't cashed. But Brianna was gone, vanished, and in the 2 decades since that night, since March 19, 2004, there has been no confirmed trace of her. What happened to Brianna Maitland after she left work that night? Why was her car abandoned in such a strange, deliberate-looking position? Who, if anyone, met her on that dark road? And why? Was it a kidnapping? A planned disappearance? Something far more sinister? The farmhouse she was found near was already rumored to be haunted. Locals avoided it. Teenagers dared each other to go inside. But the night Brianna disappeared, it wasn't the ghosts people needed to be afraid of. It was something else, something human, and maybe something she never saw coming. As the investigation unfolded, strange clues emerged, possible sightings, eerie photos, cryptic messages, and a parade of suspects, all dead ends. There were whispers about drug connections, about threats, about friends who might not have been real friends at all. Even the FBI got involved. Years later, rumors began circulating that serial killer Israel Keys might have been linked to Brianna's case. He had been in the area. He had the same signature, sudden vanishing abductions in isolated rural places, but no one knows for sure. To this day, Brianna's face still appears on missing person bulletins. Her case remains one of Vermont's deepest, most painful mysteries. Her parents have never stopped searching, and neither have the people obsessed with the question, how can a 17-year-old girl vanish completely, leaving behind everything she owned, in plain sight? In this documentary, we dive deep into the case of Brianna Maitland. We'll trace her steps leading up to that night, break down the chaotic investigation, explore the mounting theories, and reveal the newest developments, some of which may finally bring this case closer to resolution. But be warned, the answers here don't come easy, and sometimes the silence says more than the clues ever could. This is the story of a girl who disappeared into the dark, and the house that might have watched it all. In the peaceful sprawl of Vermont's rural landscape, Brianna Maitland was more than just another teenager. She was sharp, independent, and carried a certain edge that stood out in a town where everyone knew each other. At 17, she was already living on her own, juggling jobs and navigating a complex web of personal challenges. Brianna had dreams. She loved jiu-jitsu, a passion that gave her strength and discipline. She talked about college, about travel, about getting out of the quiet woods and into something bigger. But underneath that ambition was a fragile, restless spirit, one shaped by anxiety, peer tension, and the need to figure out who she really was. She'd recently moved out of her parents' home and into a place shared with friends. That move wasn't born out of rebellion, but a desire for independence. Still, her sudden shift in living arrangements was a concern for her family. Her mother, Kelly, later admitted that something had seemed off. Brianna wasn't acting like herself. She had dropped out of high school, but was working toward a GED. She was employed at 2 different jobs, one of them being the Black Lantern Inn in Montgomery. It was there, on March 19, 2004, that she worked her final shift. Her coworkers said she seemed tired, maybe distracted, but not alarmed. Nothing in her demeanor gave any indication of what would unfold that night. But the days leading up to her disappearance painted a far more troubling picture. Just 3 weeks earlier, Brianna had been physically attacked by a former friend in the parking lot of a local party. The altercation left her with a broken nose and a concussion. It wasn't just a petty fight, this was personal and violent. Despite the injuries, Brianna didn't press charges. She refused to let it define her, but privately, she wasn't okay. Close friends say she began talking about people following her. She believed someone was watching. She was jumpy, always looking over her shoulder. She also confided that she felt unsafe at her new living situation. There were whispers of drug use, strange visitors, tension in the house. At one point, Brianna told a friend she wanted out, that she didn't trust the people she was living with. She was planning a move back in with her parents, but she never got the chance. On the night of her disappearance, Brianna left work around 11:20 p.m. She told coworkers she was heading home, the farmhouse she shared with friends, about 20 minutes away. She climbed into her green Oldsmobile and drove off into the dark. That was the last confirmed sighting of her. What happened next is still unknown. Somewhere between the Black Lantern Inn and her home, something or someone intervened. When her car was discovered the next day, partially lodged into the side of the Dutchburn house, it immediately raised alarm. But police didn't notify her family right away. They assumed the car was abandoned after a minor crash. Brianna's parents didn't even learn her car had been found until 5 days after she went missing. By then, critical time had already been lost. And Brianna, she had vanished completely, like a ghost swallowed by the Vermont woods. Her life, so full of ambition and contradiction, became the center of one of the state's most haunting mysteries. A girl balancing independence with anxiety, strength with fear, had simply disappeared, leaving behind only questions, and a car pressed against a farmhouse wall. The stage was set, and the investigation was about to begin. It started with that eerie, misplaced car. On March 20th, 2004, just a few hours after Brianna Maitland left the Black Lantern Inn, a state trooper spotted a green 1985 Oldsmobile parked oddly at an abandoned property off Route 118. The rear end was still on the road, but the nose was jammed into the side of the house, almost like it had been backed in. It looked like a crash, but there was no one in or around the vehicle. What was inside, though, told a different story. The doors were unlocked. On the back seat lay 2 uncashed paychecks made out to Brianna. There were clothes, her contact lenses, her ATM card, her migraine medication, a water bottle. Everything looked like someone had left in a hurry or had been taken. But police didn't treat it like a crime scene. Not yet. The initial assumption, a simple case of drunk driving or a teenager's mistake. Maybe Brianna had fled the scene. Maybe she'd be back. They towed the car. No forensics collected. No fingerprints lifted. Brianna's family wasn't even notified until March 25th, 5 full days after she disappeared. When her mother Kelly finally learned that her daughter's car had been found days ago, she was stunned. She hadn't seen or heard from Brianna since that Friday night. Panic set in. Now the search truly began. Flyers were printed. Local news picked up the story. Brianna's face, young, serious, hopeful, was suddenly everywhere in northern Vermont. The police upgraded the case to a missing person investigation, but the damage had been done. That critical first 48 hours was long gone. Over the next weeks, the Vermont State Police tried to reconstruct Brianna's last known movements. They spoke to coworkers, friends, her roommate. But answers were elusive. Some reported seeing Brianna at a party later that night. Others claimed she had been picked up by someone. One tipster said they saw her being forced into a vehicle. Nothing could be confirmed. Cadaver dogs were brought in to search the woods around the Dutchburn house. Nothing. Helicopters swept the area. Still nothing. Even psychics were consulted, offering visions of water, of fear, of shallow graves. But they all led nowhere. In April, police began circulating a theory. Maybe Brianna left voluntarily. Maybe she'd run off. Her mother rejected that immediately. Brianna had left everything behind. Money, medication, her car, her cat. She wouldn't do that, Kelly said, not without telling someone. The weeks turned into months, then a break. A woman came forward, claiming she'd overheard a disturbing conversation at a party. Two men, she said, bragged about killing a girl named Brianna and dumping her in a lake. Police identified the men, known drug dealers in the area, and questioned them. The suspects denied everything. No evidence was found. Still, the rumors kept swirling. The drug angle wouldn't go away. Some suggested Brianna had been caught up in something, maybe as a witness, maybe as collateral. Others believed she'd been abducted by someone she knew. A year passed, then two. New tips would trickle in occasionally, but nothing concrete. Brianna's disappearance had become cold. A case stuck in limbo until one name started surfacing, a name connected to other disappearances. A man who had killed before. A predator who operated quietly, almost surgically. Israel Keys. Could he have crossed paths with Brianna? The FBI began taking a closer look, and what they found sent chills through even the most seasoned investigators. Years passed, and still no sign of Brianna. But her name never faded. Her case didn't drift into obscurity. Instead, it clung to the collective memory of Vermont's tight-knit communities, a constant ache, an unsolved wound. In 2012, nearly 8 years after she vanished, the FBI officially joined the case. A new team was brought in. Fresh eyes, advanced technology, and the hope of reigniting a long, cold trail. Investigators reanalyzed evidence, interviewed old witnesses, and used new forensic tools to comb through what little had been preserved. One of the most shocking revelations came when authorities began drawing potential connections between Brianna's case and a serial killer named Israel Keys. Keys was meticulous, cold, calculated. He didn't just kill, he stalked, he planned, and he buried kill kits in remote areas for future use. He admitted to murdering several people across the U.S. and was linked to disappearances that bore chilling similarities to Brianna's. Keys had traveled through the Northeast around the time of her disappearance. While he never confessed to harming Brianna, the FBI considered him a person of interest. But when Keys took his own life in 2012, whatever secrets he held died with him. Still, the possibility that such a predator had intersected with Brianna's path cast a long, disturbing shadow over the case. Meanwhile, DNA testing on items from Brianna's vehicle was quietly being conducted. For years, there had been no biological evidence pointing to anyone, no fingerprints, no traceable DNA. But with evolving forensic techniques, the Vermont State Police hoped something might emerge. In 2016, they submitted several items to the FBI for advanced testing. The results, however, were frustrating. Nothing conclusive, no match in national databases. Whoever had been with Brianna that night, if anyone, had left no clear trace. Still, the case remained active. In 2017, on the 13th anniversary of her disappearance, police held a press conference. They announced they were following new leads. Though tight-lipped, they acknowledged that persons of interest were being investigated. The case had not been forgotten. Not by them, not by the community. More tips flowed in. Some claimed Brianna had been held against her will, trafficked out of state. Others suggested she had been murdered and buried in a rural part of Vermont, still untouched by search teams. A few tips named names, individuals who had never been questioned. In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic slowed progress, but it didn't stop it. Investigators continued working behind the scenes, and the FBI reaffirmed their commitment to solving Brianna's disappearance. Digital forensics were revisited, old interview tapes were reanalyzed, and even satellite imaging of the area around the Dutchburn house was explored for clues. In 2022, nearly 2 decades after she vanished, Brianna's case got another surge of public attention. A Cold Case podcast featured her story, sparking renewed interest. More people came forward, adding pieces, however small, to a massive, still growing puzzle. Brianna's parents, still grieving but determined, continued speaking to media. Her mother, Kelly, especially, became the face of a relentless pursuit for answers. "We just want to know what happened," she often said. "Even if it's not the ending we want, we need peace." By early 2023, the Vermont State Police had conducted multiple new interviews. For the first time in years, there was genuine optimism. Detectives hinted at a possible breakthrough, but were careful not to overpromise. The public clung to hope, but as of now, the truth remains buried. Maybe in the thick Vermont forests, maybe in someone's silence. Yet despite the time, despite the silence, despite the fading memories, Brianna Maitland's name still echoes. She has not been forgotten, and the investigation is far from over. 2 decades later, the truth remains hidden, but the silence hasn't stopped the theories. Some say Brianna was abducted by someone she knew, that she left work that night, met up with a friend or maybe a boyfriend, and something went wrong. A fight, a mistake, panic, and then a cover-up. This theory leans on familiarity, how Brianna seemed stressed in the days leading up to her disappearance, how she left her job in a hurry that night, without even cashing her paycheck. Others are convinced it was a random act, a predator on the road, an opportunity taken in the darkness. They point to the bizarre positioning of her car, backed into the old Dutchburn house, and the untouched items inside. If it were someone she trusted, would she have left everything behind like that? Her wallet, her keys, her contacts, everything but herself. Then there's the theory that cuts deeper, the one no parent wants to believe, that Brianna fell into the hands of human traffickers. Some of the initial tips that came in to police claimed she'd been taken against her will, drugged, and moved across state lines. A few alleged she'd been spotted in Atlantic City. Others said she was in New York or Canada, but none of those leads ever panned out, and yet they couldn't be completely dismissed. Montgomery is remote, but it's not impenetrable. It sits near major roadways. It's a short drive from the Canadian border. It's conceivable that someone could have taken her and disappeared into another life, or ended hers, leaving no trace. There were also persistent rumors that Brianna had gotten involved with people who were dangerous. Rumors of drug debt, of people she owed or had crossed. Investigators never confirmed this publicly, but in private, they followed up. Interviews were conducted, properties searched, names collected, but again, no charges, no arrests. It's that uncertainty that's been hardest for Brianna's family to live with. No closure, no answers, just silence. Her father, Bruce Maitland, once said in an interview, "The hardest part is waking up every morning and not knowing. It's the not knowing that haunts you." In the years since her disappearance, the Maitlands have become vocal advocates for missing persons. They launched a non-profit called Private Investigations for the Missing, aimed at helping other families find answers when the system falls short. Through it, Brianna's name lives on, not just as a victim, but as a force for change. The Dutchburn house, where her car was found, has since collapsed. Nothing remains of it now but foundation stones and memories. Locals still speak of it in hushed tones, not just as a physical place, but as a symbol, a haunting marker of what was lost. Many people still visit the site. Some leave flowers, some leave prayers, and some just stand there, staring at the field, wondering how, in this age of cameras, data, and constant connection, a 17-year-old girl could vanish without a trace. There's something uniquely chilling about Breonna Maitland's case. Not just the mystery of her disappearance, but the utter stillness that followed. No definitive crime scene, no confession, no confirmed sighting. Just a car, a house, and a girl who never came home. And that enduring absence is what keeps this case alive. The unanswered questions, the aching possibility that someone, somewhere, still knows the truth. Maybe they're scared, maybe they think it's too late, but it's not. It never is, because a case like this doesn't close until the truth is found, and even then, the emotional ripples never stop. For Breonna's family, for her friends, for the officers who still work the case in quiet corners of their departments, and for us, because stories like this don't just fade into the news cycle, they burn into our memory. They remind us of the fragility of safety, of the people who vanish without explanation, of the families left behind with more questions than answers. If you know something, anything, about what happened to Breonna Maitland, contact the Vermont State Police or submit an anonymous tip through her family's nonprofit. Justice isn't just about punishment, it's about truth. And truth, even after 20 years, still matters. If this story moved you, please share it. Someone out there knows what happened to Breonna. Let's keep her face in the light until we find answers. Like, comment your thoughts and theories, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that demand to be heard. You're watching the Red Tape Crime Files. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and never stop asking questions.